My CEO wife never would have dreamed that after spending just one night with her male best friend, she'd wake up to a text message saying $80 million had been withdrawn from her account. She frantically called me, her assistant, but to her surprise, it was her father who answered. Ethan is gone. That money was compensation for his time. Khloe was stunned. How come I don't know that Ethan and I are divorced? Mr. Vanderbilt stated bluntly. I had the divorce papers drawn up before you were even married. They became effective the moment he signed. But even after hearing the news from her own father, she refused to believe I would actually leave her. 3 years ago, Khloe's parents approached me with a contract. All I had to do was stay by Khloe's side for 3 years, and in return, they would find the best doctors to treat my sister and give me enough money to live on afterward. I agreed without a moment's hesitation. Despite Khloe being incredibly high maintenance, my efforts had paid off. In 5 days, I would finally be reunited with my only family. Just then, my phone buzzed. I picked it up and saw a message from Khloe. I paused when I saw it was the location of a bar in Manhattan. My hand tightened slightly around the phone. Seeing my reaction, Mr. Vanderbilt knew his daughter was contacting me and told me I could go. After saying goodbye to Mr. Vanderbilt, I had just gotten into my car when another message from Khloe came through, rushing me. I simply replied with 2 words, on my way. Half an hour later, I arrived at the bar. As I pushed open the door to the private booth, Khloe's eyes landed on me instantly, and her brow furrowed in clear annoyance at my lateness. Did you crawl here? A pig would have been faster. I had heard comments like that countless times over the past 3 years. I was immune to them by now. Just then, Dylan Hayes, who was sitting beside Khloe, wrapped an arm around hers and said with feigned kindness, maybe something held him up. Khloe's tone was sharp with irritation. What could he possibly have going on? His entire life revolves around me from morning till night. The others around them teased her. You don't know how good you have it. Khloe just scoffed at the comment. I didn't say a word to defend myself during their discussion, because she wasn't wrong. My job really was to revolve around her. Suddenly, a commotion erupted from the main floor below, drawing everyone's attention. It was a drinking contest, and the grand prize was a limited edition bracelet. Khloe, I want it, Dylan said suddenly. I'll win it for you, Khloe answered, her voice full of affection. Then I felt her gaze shift to me. Go win that bracelet for Dylan. I glanced down at the contest and saw a large crowd of participants who all looked like they could outdrink me easily, which made me nervous. I turned back to Khloe. I only work for you. Other people are not my concern. But Khloe was insistent. Then I'm ordering you to win it for me. She leaned back against the sofa, looking down her nose at me. Ethan, are you going to refuse me? Everyone in the booth turned to look at me. Khloe knew I wouldn't refuse when she said that. After all, they all believed I was so in love with her that I would die for her. So how could I possibly say no to a simple request? I didn't refuse. Instead, I walked downstairs without a word to join the contest. The bartender looked at me in disbelief, asking repeatedly if I was sure I wanted to enter. I confirmed every time because this was part of the price I had to pay. The contest began, and the cheers from the crowd grew louder. I silently downed glass after glass until finally, it was just me and one other guy. He was so impressed by my sheer determination that he eventually conceded. I had lost count of how many drinks I'd had, simply repeating the motion of bringing the glass to my lips. It was only when the bartender told me to stop that I realized I had one. With a trembling hand, I accepted the bracelet box from the bartender and staggered back upstairs. With everyone watching, I walked over to Khloe and held out the box. The bracelet you wanted. Seeing my eyes struggling to focus and how I could barely stand, Khloe frowned, a strange tightness forming in her chest. I pushed the box a little closer in my confusion, which snapped her out of it. She snatched it from my hand and carefully fastened the bracelet onto Dylan's wrist. Dylan glanced down at it, then looked up at Khloe. Khloe, how does it look? Khloe looked at the bracelet, but the image of my disheveled state flashed in her mind. A wave of irritation washed over her, and she abruptly took the bracelet off his wrist. It's hideous. Don't wear something so cheap. I'll buy you something better another time. And just like that, the bracelet I nearly killed myself to win was carelessly tossed onto the floor. I lowered my gaze, bent down, and picked it up. I'm going to the restroom, I mumbled, not caring if she heard me, and braced myself against the wall as I made my way there. I made it to the bathroom just in time to vomit violently. Afterward, I stumbled to the sink and looked at my disheveled reflection with a bitter laugh. I splashed some water on my face, straightened myself up as best I could, and went back to the booth, only to find it empty. I stepped out of the bar into the night. The wind was cold, and I wrapped my arms around myself. I pulled out my phone to call an Uber, but the battery was dead, so I had no choice but to start walking home. It was 2 hours later when I finally got home. I opened the door to find Khloe sitting right in the middle of the living room sofa, a sarcastic smirk on her face. "Where have you been? What took you so long to get back? Don't tell me you went for another round of drinks with someone at the bar." Her tone was accusatory, as if I were some kind of sleazy guy. I felt a flash of resentment but kept my voice neutral. "My phone died. I walked." Khloe clearly didn't believe me. "You'd better have." She stood up and headed for the master bedroom upstairs, adding over her shoulder, "You stink of booze. You're not sleeping in my bed tonight." I reeked of alcohol because of her, but I didn't dare argue. I took a shower in the downstairs bathroom, pulled a blanket off a chair, and fell asleep on the sofa. The next day, I actually slept in a little, only to be woken by a call from Khloe. The moment I answered, she barked an order: "Make lunch for 2 and bring it to the office. And be quick about it." She hung up before I could respond, not that I had the right to refuse anyway. I sat on the sofa in a daze for a moment. When I stood up, my head felt heavy and clouded. I knew I was coming down with a cold. My phone buzzed again with a new message from Khloe: "You have 40 minutes. To save time, I skipped looking for any cold medicine and went straight to the kitchen. I worked as fast as I could, but by the time I finished, more than 40 minutes had passed. When I got to her company, Vanderbilt Industries, I hurried toward her office. As I walked through the main workspace, I could hear the whispers of the employees. "There he is again, bringing lunch to suck up to Ms. Vanderbilt. He's so persistent. I know, right? It's obvious she only has eyes for Dylan Hayes. This Ethan guy just doesn't know when to quit." I paid their words no mind. The moment I stepped into her office, Khloe's voice hit me like a physical blow. I said, 40 minutes. How late are you? Can you bear the responsibility if Dylan starves? I placed the lunch containers on her desk, my expression obedient. I said nothing, intending to leave as soon as I set them down. Khloe stopped me. "Did I say you could leave? Unpack the food." I took a deep breath and obediently turned to arrange the food on her desk. Sometimes I wondered if the Vanderbilts had hired me to be her nanny. She was like a helpless child, relying on me for everything from meals to the simplest daily tasks. The moment the food was arranged, Khloe had another demand. "Go get me a coffee." I did as I was told. As I stepped out of the office, I heard Dylan's voice behind me. "Khloe, I'll go with him." I heard his footsteps but didn't look back, walking straight to the coffee machine in the break room. Dylan stood beside me, his tone casual. "You know, even though you're married to Khloe, I'm the one she's always loved. You're aware of that, right?" I ground the coffee beans without looking up. Of course. I had known that since the day I married her. Seeing my nonchalant attitude, Dylan's expression soured, taking my calmness as a challenge. Once the coffee was ready, I carried the cup back toward the office, ignoring Dylan. As I pushed the door open, Dylan, who had been trailing behind, suddenly rushed past and slammed into my side. The scalding hot coffee splashed all over my hand and arm, the pain sharp and immediate. Khloe, who had been focused on some documents, heard Dylan cry out and immediately rushed over to him. "Dylan, what's wrong? Are you burned?" she asked, her voice filled with concern. Dylan, his voice thick with a sob, looked utterly victimized. "Khloe, it's not Ethan's fault. It was me. I wasn't careful." He didn't have to finish the sentence for Khloe to get the wrong idea. As expected, her eyes, sharp as daggers, shot toward me, and she kicked me hard, sending me stumbling out of the office. "Did you do that on purpose? Your jealousy is disgusting. Get out." Her furious shouts drew the attention of everyone outside, and a crowd gathered. Amid their open mockery and whispers, I painfully pulled myself to my feet and left, covered in coffee, my hand throbbing. When I got home, I ordered some burn cream and cold medicine for delivery. That evening, Khloe came home to find me applying a second coat of cream to my burn. She paused while taking off her shoes, then walked over. "I saw the security footage. I know it was an accident, but Dylan has very sensitive skin. He gets hurt easily. You need to be more careful from now on." I listened to her and let out a small, bitter laugh. Was she implying my skin was tougher? Seeing my silence, Khloe must have thought I was still angry. She took the tube of cream from my hand and began to apply it for me. I froze, completely stunned. The cool sensation of the cream on my skin was the only thing that convinced me this was really happening. My mind was racing with questions when Khloe's phone suddenly rang. The house was so quiet I could clearly hear Dylan's voice on the other end. "Khloe, I feel so dizzy. Can you come be with me?" A look of panic crossed Khloe's face. "Dylan, just hang on. I'm coming right now. Just wait for me." With that, she slammed my injured hand down on the coffee table and rushed out. A searing pain shot up my arm, and I cried out, but she was already gone, the front door slamming shut behind her. I clutched my hand, waiting for the intense pain to subside. I had to laugh at myself. It was absurd to think, even for a second, that she was capable of showing me any real kindness. After I finished treating my hand, I wasn't tired, so I started packing my things. I'd never considered this place home, so I didn't have much. Everything fit easily into a single small suitcase. Once I was done, I sat on the sofa and looked out at the garden, which was full of flowers I had planted. Gardening was the one hobby that life hadn't managed to grind out of me. I remember the first time I planted anything, Khloe had sneered, "You're really making yourself at home, aren't you?" Now that I was leaving, the flowers would just be an eyesore for her. I thought for a moment, then went out to the garden and started pulling them up. It took me less than 4 hours to uproot 3 years of work. By the time I was finished, dawn was breaking. I looked at the now barren garden before heading back inside to shower. Just as I was about to get some sleep, my phone rang. Khloe's name flashed on the screen. My hand tightened around the phone, but I answered just before it went to voicemail. "Bring me a jacket. I've sent you the address." Her tone was as commanding as ever. I hung up and stared at the blank screen, confused. Why did I have to be the one to deliver a single jacket? Then again, she probably just liked ordering me around. As I got in the car with her jacket, I felt a sudden, sharp pain in my chest that took my breath away. It vanished a moment later, so I thought nothing of it. When I arrived, I realized the address was for the New York Aquarium. Khloe's other assistant led me inside. The entire place was empty. It was obvious she had booked it out. The assistant led me up a flight of stairs, where I saw Khloe and Dylan crouching over the top of the main tank, playing with a dolphin. I walked over and handed her the jacket. Khloe took it and glanced at me. "You were quick today." She then draped the jacket over Dylan's shoulders. "You have a cold and you still insisted on coming here. Put this on so you don't get worse," Dylan said playfully. "But I have you to keep me warm. You wouldn't let me get sick." Khloe smiled at him affectionately. Suddenly, Dylan gasped. "My bracelet!" The dolphin had playfully snatched it right off his wrist. "It's fine. I'll buy you a new one," Khloe reassured him. But Dylan looked heartbroken. "No, that was the first gift you ever gave me. It's not the same." "Ethan," Khloe said, her voice turning back to business. She didn't even look at me, as if she already knew I couldn't refuse. "I heard you used to work at an aquarium. Getting a bracelet from a dolphin shouldn't be too hard for you, right? Get it back." My breath caught in my throat. I had worked all sorts of jobs to pay for my sister's medical bills, but it had been a long time since I'd done any diving. Still, I couldn't refuse. As I treaded water, I took a deep breath, and that sharp pain flared in my chest again. At that same moment, I heard Khloe urging me to hurry up. I retrieved the bracelet easily enough, but as I started to surface, the dolphin thought I was playing and kept pulling me back under. Between the lack of sleep and my lingering cold, my strength was fading fast. The moment my head broke the surface, everything went black, and I passed out, the bracelet still clutched in my hand. Before I lost consciousness completely, I felt a pair of strong hands pulling me up. "Must be the aquarium staff," I thought tiredly. I lay unconscious in a hospital bed. Across the room, Khloe and her mother sat on a small sofa. Mrs. Vanderbilt had been at the hospital for her own checkup when she saw me being brought in and had rushed over. The doctor reviewed my chart. "It's nothing too serious. It seems to be a combination of exhaustion from lack of sleep, a cold, and overexertion." Mrs. Vanderbilt breathed a sigh of relief. After all, I was the one she had hired to be by her daughter's side. Looking at my pale face, she felt a pang of confusion. She didn't remember her daughter being this cruel. She couldn't understand why Khloe would treat me this way. Finally, she couldn't hold back any longer. "Khloe, what is going on with you? There are only 2 days left. How could you let him end up like this?" "What do you mean, 2 days left?" Khloe interrupted, frowning. Mrs. Vanderbilt froze, realizing her slip-up. "Oh, it's nothing," she said with a forced laugh. Sensing something was off, Khloe was about to press her for more, but her phone rang. She answered, and her expression changed before she quickly left the room. When I woke up, Mrs. Vanderbilt was still there. I stared at her for a moment, surprised. She looked a little embarrassed. "About my daughter, I am truly sorry." "It's fine," I cut in. "I'm just here to get what I was promised." Mrs. Vanderbilt was taken aback by my bluntness. Seeing that I had turned my face away, she said no more and quietly left the room. I heard the door click shut. I still felt tired, so I closed my eyes and drifted back to sleep. When I opened my eyes again, it was dark outside. I picked up my phone and saw a new Facebook post from Dylan. It was a photo of an expensive-looking bracelet with the caption, "The little dolphin broke the last one, so she immediately bought me a new one. When you find a woman like this, you marry her." I felt a bitter twist in my lips. Just then, a video message came through. My hands trembled as I opened it. It was my sister, Clara, doing physical therapy. It was clearly from the Vanderbilts. I saved the video and watched it again and again, tears of joy streaming down my cheeks. Suddenly, Khloe's low voice came from right behind me. "Who is that?" I jumped, quickly hiding my phone and wiping my eyes. Khloe reached for it. "I asked you a question. Who is that woman?" I'd never seen that expression on her face before. I held my phone tightly and tried to keep my voice even. "A friend from college." When her expression didn't change, I added, "We haven't spoken in a long time." That seemed to placate her slightly. "If you're not in touch, then she must not be important. Delete the video. Here, I'll do it for you." To avoid making her suspicious, I had no choice but to hand her the phone and watch as she deleted the only video I had of my sister. Her usual cold mask slipped back into place. "Get your things. I'm taking you home." I was stunned. I couldn't understand why she was personally discharging me from the hospital. "Hurry up," she urged. "I'll be waiting at the entrance." When I got my things and went downstairs, I opened the rear door of her car to get in. "What am I, your chauffeur?" she said coldly. "Get in the front." I had no choice but to close the door and get in the passenger seat. As we were driving, Khloe suddenly broke the silence. "What happened to the flowers in the garden?" I paused. "She must have gone home first. I didn't feel like taking care of them anymore," I said casually, "so I pulled them up." Khloe scoffed. "You really act like you own the place, don't you? Planting and ripping things out whenever you feel like it." I spoke quietly. "I have never once thought of this place as my home." Khloe just let out a cold snort, and we drove the rest of the way in silence. When we arrived at the house, I realized someone else was there. As if just remembering, Khloe said, "Dylan is staying here for a few days." I just nodded slightly. Dylan, however, stood up and addressed me directly. "Ethan, you don't mind, do you?" Before I could answer, Khloe cut in. "He has no right to mind. You just make yourself at home." I looked down and gave a bitter, silent laugh. The strange thing was, even with Dylan in the house, Khloe still slept in the same bed as me instead of moving to a guest room. I didn't dwell on it, though. On my final day, I woke up to find Khloe already gone. When I stepped out of the bedroom, I saw Dylan standing in the hallway, staring at a painting on the wall. I tried to ignore him and head downstairs. He called out to me without turning around. "I thought you would have left her long ago with the way she treats you. I'm surprised you've lasted this long." Dylan turned and walked up to me, circling me as if I were some curious object on display. "Khloe used to tell me how madly in love with her you were. I didn't believe it then, but I believe it now." I frowned, unsure of what he was getting at. Then he continued, "But it's all for nothing. She doesn't love you one bit. You must have realized that over the last 3 years, right?" I felt nothing. I was well aware of the truth, but I didn't understand why he felt the need to keep repeating it, almost as if he were trying to convince himself. Dylan stopped in front of me. "What do you think Khloe would do to you if she found out you pushed me down the stairs?" "What are you talking about?" "I didn't push you," I said, my brow furrowed. "You haven't yet, but that's about to change." Just then, we heard the front door open downstairs. Dylan looked at me, smiled, and then took 2 steps back before throwing himself backward down the stairs. I instinctively lunged forward to catch him, but my hands grasped at empty air. At that exact moment, Khloe walked in. Seeing Dylan tumbling down the stairs, she rushed over to break his fall, but he was still injured. Khloe helped him up and hurried him toward his room, violently shoving me aside as I stood frozen at the top of the stairs. Through the crack in the door, where Khloe couldn't see, Dylan shot me a triumphant smirk. I stared in shock, unable to believe he would go this far just to frame me. Seeing my expression, Dylan's smirk vanished, replaced by a look of pained forbearance as he turned to Khloe. "Khloe, please don't blame Ethan. I must have upset him. I'm sure he didn't mean to push me." "Stop it. You're always too nice, that's why people take advantage of you. Just wait here. I'm calling a doctor." With that, Khloe stepped out of the room, closed the door, and advanced on me, step by step. I backed away until I was pressed against the opposite wall. She didn't waste a single word. She grabbed my wrist and started dragging me downstairs. I tripped and fell on the steps, but she didn't even slow down, just kept pulling me along. Every inch of my body ached. She dragged me all the way to the wardrobe in a first-floor guest room. When I realized she was going to lock me inside, terror seized me. I gripped the doorframe, pleading, "Khloe, I didn't push him. He fell on his own." I had once lived in a dark, damp basement infested with rats during a particularly hard time in my life. Ever since then, I've had a crippling fear of small, dark spaces. But Khloe didn't believe a word I said. She pried my fingers off the door one by one and shoved me inside. The doors slammed shut, and I heard her wedge something through the handles to lock me in. I was plunged into absolute darkness, and a cold sweat broke out on my forehead. I pounded on the doors with all my might. Khloe, Khloe, let me out. Please, I can't be in here. But there was only silence from the other side. Eventually, my strength gave out, and I collapsed into a ball on the floor, hugging my knees to my chest. I could almost hear the drip of water and the squeak of rats. And for a moment, I was right back in that terrifying basement. I don't know how much time had passed before the doors finally opened. The sudden light was blinding, and I threw an arm over my eyes. Khloe froze. My hair was a mess, my lips were bloodless, and my forehead was slick with cold sweat. She hadn't expected it to affect me this badly. She had only meant to punish me. A strange ache bloomed in her chest, and she moved to help me up. But the moment she reached for me, I recoiled violently, as if she were a killer. A flash of anger crossed her face. She grabbed me roughly and hauled me out. I had no idea you were so unhappy about Dylan staying here. If something had seriously happened to him, you would have committed a crime. Do you understand that? I let her pull me to my feet, too exhausted to argue. It was my last day anyway. It didn't matter what she believed. Tomorrow I would be gone. Seeing my completely unresponsive state, Khloe's anger only grew. She dragged me down the hall to Dylan's room. The doctor had just left, and a tube of ointment sat on the nightstand. Khloe threw me to the floor. "Put the ointment on Dylan's bruises," she ordered coldly. Not wanting any more conflict, I obediently reached for the ointment. Then she added 2 more words. "On your knees." I looked up at her in disbelief. She stared back, her face a cold mask, thinking to herself that if I just begged a little, she would relent. But I only stared at her in shock for a few seconds before saying something she didn't understand. "Khloe, this is the last time." Before she could figure out what I meant, I turned, knelt before Dylan, and began applying the ointment. Now it was Khloe's turn to be stunned. I paid her no mind. All I could think about was that I would be seeing my sister soon. In the end, Khloe didn't even wait for me to finish before pushing me out of the room. Staring at the closed door, I felt a wave of relief wash over me. It was finally over. I went back to my room and packed the last of my things into my suitcase. All that was left was to meet with Khloe's father tomorrow, and this would all be over for good. I was so excited about seeing my sister that I barely slept a wink. Khloe never came back to the room. At the first light of dawn, I eagerly brought my suitcase downstairs. Thankfully, Khloe was nowhere to be seen. When I arrived at the main Vanderbilt estate, Mr. Vanderbilt handed me the divorce papers. "Sign this, and you and Khloe will have nothing more to do with each other." I took the pen and signed my name without a moment's hesitation. Then Mr. Vanderbilt gave me a plane ticket to Switzerland, a new phone, and a debit card. "When you land, someone will be there to take you to your sister." I placed my old phone on the table. "Thank you," I said to him. Even though it was a transaction, the Vanderbilts had saved my sister's life, and for that I was grateful. Before I left, I thought of Khloe and made one last request of her father. "Please, don't tell her where I've gone." He didn't know why, but he agreed. With that assurance, I left the Vanderbilt estate without a single regret and headed for the airport. Back at the estate, Mr. Vanderbilt finished his tea and walked over to the trash can with my old phone. Just as he was about to toss it in, it began to vibrate violently. Khloe's name was flashing on the screen. Mr. Vanderbilt answered. Khloe's frantic voice burst from the speaker. "Where did you go so early? Why aren't you at home?" After locking me in my room last night, she had spent a sleepless night in a guest room. This morning, when she went to the master bedroom to find me, the room was empty. A frantic search of the house turned up nothing, and a strange panic had compelled her to call. "Mr. Miller is gone." Khloe paused, recognizing her father's voice. "What?" Mr. Vanderbilt didn't beat around the bush. "Ethan has divorced you. There's no need to look for him. You're free to be with whomever you please now." His words only confused her more. Before her father could say another word, she hung up. The word divorce echoed in her mind, but she couldn't believe it. She searched the house again, and this time she noticed that some things were missing, all of them mine. And somehow my phone had ended up with her father. A terrible suspicion began to form in her mind. She quickly changed clothes and rushed for the door, but Dylan intercepted her at the top of the stairs. "Khloe, where are you going in such a hurry?" "I was hoping you'd have breakfast with me," he said, clinging to her arm affectionately. Normally, she would have agreed without a second thought, but today her mind was consumed with me. She impatiently shook his hand off her arm. "Eat by yourself." Khloe floored it all the way to the main estate. Her father was sitting in the living room, unsurprised to see her, though her haste was unexpected. "Dad, what did you mean on the phone? Why do you have Ethan's phone?" she demanded the moment she walked in, skipping any greeting. Mr. Vanderbilt didn't answer directly. He reached under the coffee table, pulled out the divorce papers, and placed them in front of her. Ethan has already signed. All you have to do is add your signature, and it's final. Seeing the actual document, Khloe knew her father was serious. But she still couldn't accept that I would divorce her. She snatched the papers and flipped to the last page, where she saw my signature. Her eyes widened in disbelief. She threw the papers back on the table. Where is he? He would never divorce me. You must have forced him. In her mind, her father must have forced me into this because he looked down on my humble background. Mr. Vanderbilt hesitated for a moment before telling her the truth. 3 years ago, a fortune teller predicted a terrible fate for you, a bloody disaster. So we found Mr. Miller, whose birth chart was compatible with yours. He signed a contract. We would provide the resources to cure someone for him, and in return, he would marry you and stay by your side for 3 years. Today, the contract expired. He has left. Khloe's world tilted on its axis, but she still refused to believe it. After all, I loved her so much. Impossible. Ethan loves me. You're just making this up to trick me. I don't believe you. Think about everything you've put him through. If it wasn't for a powerful incentive, why would he have stayed with you for so long? Khloe, love isn't that powerful. In that instant, a roar filled Khloe's ears, drowning out everything else. She thought about how she had treated me for 3 years, about her mother's words at the hospital, and finally, about what I had said to her last night. This is the last time. As the fog cleared, she finally realized that the look in my eyes had never been love. It had only ever been the patient tolerance of someone fulfilling a contract. Impossible, she whispered, the image of my calm, detached eyes playing in her mind. Her defenses began to crumble, but she kept muttering the word. Impossible. Her father sighed with a hint of pity, went upstairs, and returned with the original contract, placing it on the table in front of her. Staring at the contract, Khloe could no longer deny the truth. In an instant, any lingering hope she had was extinguished, replaced by a burning rage. She clenched the papers in her fist, her eyes turning red. All of you all lied to me. The papers fluttered to the floor. Mr. Vanderbilt watched her calmly from his chair. He had always known his daughter could be cruel and immature, so her anger was no surprise. But her intense reaction to my departure did puzzle him. You all lied to me, Khloe mumbled, her mind consumed by rage. She looked up at her father. Where is Ethan? You know where he is, don't you? Tell me. Her father ignored her demanding tone and didn't reveal my location. Instead, he offered a piece of advice. He did a lot for you over these 3 years. Just sign the papers and part ways amicably. I thought you were fond of that Dylan Hayes. I won't object if you wish to marry him. But Khloe didn't hear a word he said. She snatched my old phone and the divorce papers from the table and stormed out, calling back, if you won't tell me, I'll find him myself. When she got home, Dylan was gone. Khloe didn't care. She locked herself in her study and ordered her assistant to find me. She called all of her friends, and every one of them was shocked that she was looking for me. In their eyes, I was nothing more than her pathetic, obsessed follower. What's going on? They all asked, but no matter how they pressed, Khloe would only say she needed their help. All right, they all eventually agreed. Khloe finally put her phone down. She knew it would take time, but she couldn't stop staring at the screen. In the quiet, she finally had a moment to wonder why she was feeling so furious. As she thought, her eyes landed on my old phone. She picked it up and turned it on, a sliver of hope in her heart. She still couldn't bring herself to believe I felt absolutely nothing for her. But when she opened my notes app, that last bit of hope was crushed. I had very few notes, and almost all of them were about my sister. The most recent one was from 5 days ago. 5 more days until this is all over. Then I can finally go see Clara. Every single note was filled with love and concern for this Clara. Khloe stared at the screen, her eyes burning, until they began to ache. A stubborn resolve hardened within her. She had to find me and hear it from my own lips. Night fell, but Khloe didn't turn on any lights. She sat in the dark, replaying the last 3 years in her mind, finally realizing just how cruel she had been. Her thoughts snagged on the day Dylan claimed I had pushed him. She had been too furious at the time to think clearly, but now, she realized how perfectly everything had aligned. A dark suspicion took root, and she pulled up the security footage from the stairwell. The video played, and she saw it clearly. Dylan throwing himself down the stairs, while I hadn't laid a single finger on him. A sharp, piercing pain shot through her heart. She clutched her chest, but before she could even process the feeling, it was consumed by rage. Dylan had dared to manipulate her. She grabbed her phone and dialed Dylan's number. He, completely oblivious to her fury, answered with a playful whine, complaining about her coldness that morning. So you finally remembered I exist? I was so upset this morning I couldn't even eat. Khloe cut him off, her voice ice. Did Ethan really push you yesterday? Dylan was silent for a second, then his voice took on a wounded tone. Of course he did. My knee is still killing me. Stop lying to me. Khloe's sharp retort silenced him. I saw the security footage. You threw yourself down those stairs. Dylan panicked, blurting out a denial. I didn't. He pushed me. Khloe, you have to believe me. Knowing she wouldn't get the truth over the phone, Khloe hung up, got in her car, and drove to Dylan's apartment. The sound of heavy knocking echoed. The violent pounding on the door finally made Dylan feel a prickle of fear. He clutched his phone, staring at the front door in terror. But Khloe wasn't giving up. The knocking only grew more intense. Dylan, open this door right now, or I swear I will break it down. Terrified she would actually do it, Dylan opened the door. Khloe strode in, and he instinctively stumbled backward. Silhouetted against the light from the hallway, her eyes were cold as she held up her phone and played the video. Dylan's eyes widened in panic. He never thought she would actually check the cameras. The video ended. Still want to lie to me? With a violent shove, she sent him sprawling to the floor. Pain shot through Dylan's body. He looked up at her, his eyes red with tears. Khloe, I only did it because I love you so much. If it weren't for Ethan getting in the way, we could have been married by now. He's the one who ruined everything. His words had no effect on her. Her voice was chillingly cold. Regardless, Ethan is my husband. Who do you think you are to lay a hand on him? You're pathetic. Ignoring his struggles, Khloe dragged him back to her house. She took him to the same guest room, to the same wardrobe, and shoved him inside. You're going to feel the same pain Ethan felt. She locked the doors but didn't leave. She sat on the bed opposite the wardrobe, listening to Dylan's frantic shouts and the sound of his fists beating against the wood. For a moment, she was transported back to the night before. But she had left after locking me in. Had I been just as terrified as Dylan was now? The thought sent a tearing pain through her chest, so intense it nearly buckled her. Yet, as if punishing herself, she forced herself to keep listening. She had locked him in at night, and she sat there until dawn, only then moving her stiff limbs. The wardrobe had fallen silent. Instead of opening it, she picked up her phone and called her assistant. The answer was the same, still no news of me. A wave of disappointment washed over her. She hung up and pulled open the wardrobe doors. Dylan was either asleep or had passed out. Without touching him, she called 2 of her security guards, had them dump him on the doorstep of the Hayes family estate, and left a simple message for his father, "Control your son." After it was all done, she looked around the silent house, an immense feeling of desolation washing over her. The house had never felt empty before, but now it was cavernous. Was it just because I was gone? She pushed the thought away, focusing all her energy on finding me. But it was as if I had vanished from the face of the earth. Days went by with no news. Gradually, Khloe began to hate being in the house without me. She started spending her nights at bars, drinking herself to sleep. Her friends soon found out and, worried about her, started joining her. Khloe just kept drinking, glass after glass, night after night. One evening, one of her friends, fueled by curiosity and alcohol, finally asked, "Khloe, we're all wondering, why are you going to all this trouble to find Ethan? He's gone. It's not like you ever liked him anyway." Khloe slammed her glass down, her eyes flashing with fury. "He lied to me. The whole time he was lying. He never loved me." Her words sent shockwaves through the group. They had all witnessed my seemingly endless devotion to her. To hear her say I never loved her was stunning. But before they could ask any more questions, they saw that Khloe was crying. "He never loved me," she sobbed, the anger in her eyes replaced by a deep, wounded sadness. Tears streamed down her face. She looked like someone whose heart had been completely shattered, a sight that left her friends speechless. Khloe went back to her drinking, and her friends didn't dare ask any more questions, though they were beginning to form their own theories. Later that night, seeing how drunk she was, they took her home. They were surprised to find the house completely empty, not even a housekeeper in sight. As they debated taking her to one of their apartments, Khloe started shooing them away. "You can all go home. Ethan will take care of me." The door slammed shut in their faces. They exchanged confused glances, wondering how a man who was gone could possibly take care of her, but eventually, they left. The moment the door was closed, Khloe started shouting, "Ethan, I'm drunk. Come and take care of me." Her voice echoed through the empty mansion, but there was no reply. She began to wander through the vast house, calling my name, answered only by the echo of her own voice. Her drunken mind grew hazy. The realization that I was truly gone hit her like a tidal wave of grief. In that moment, the pain of losing me completely eclipsed her anger at being deceived. Khloe collapsed to her knees, burying her face in her hands. Ethan, why did you lie to me? And after lying, why did you just leave? How could you leave so easily? She rambled, her words slurring, before slumping against the banister and passing out. She woke up in a hospital bed with an 4 in her arm. Her parents were sitting by her side. Her father glanced at her coolly, but her mother leaned in close. You're finally awake. I went to the house this morning and found you passed out on the floor by the stairs. You were burning up. You scared me half to death. Khloe slowly pieced together what had happened. She wasn't the type to black out, so she remembered everything. Crying at the bar, collapsing at home, begging me not to leave. She could no longer lie to herself and pretend that all she felt for me was anger. Seeing her daughter's silence, Mrs. Vanderbilt's heart ached. You kept calling Ethan's name in your sleep. I had no idea you cared for him so much. If I had known, I never would have let him leave. Khloe stared out the window. You couldn't have stopped him, she said quietly. It was true. A man who could endure 3 years of misery without complaint to save someone he loved would never stop for her. But still, she couldn't let me go. She turned her gaze from the window to her mother, a look of pleading in her eyes for the first time in her life. Mom, please tell me where he is. I won't cause any trouble this time. Mom, I'm begging you. It was the first time she had ever begged anyone for anything. As a child, she had been fiercely independent, but now, for me, she was pleading. Her mother's heart broke for her, but she didn't know where I was either, so she turned to her husband. Mr. Vanderbilt gave his daughter a cold look and snorted. You like him that much now? Where was this before? You only want him now that he's gone. When Mr. Miller left, he specifically asked me not to tell you where he was going. He doesn't want to see you. Since you're so capable, find him yourself. I won't stop you. How can you be so cruel to your own daughter? Mrs. Vanderbilt cried. You know where he is. Just tell her. She needs to grow up, he replied, his tone final. She made this mess. She needs to take responsibility for it. Mrs. Vanderbilt looked at her daughter with concern. Khloe said nothing, just turned her head to stare out the window, a silent vow forming in her heart. I will find you. On the other side of the world, in a hospital in Switzerland, I was with my sister, Clara, for a follow-up appointment. After leaving the Vanderbilt estate, I had boarded the flight to Switzerland. A contact met me at the airport in Geneva and drove me to a private medical center, updating me on Clara's condition along the way. When we arrived, the doctor told me Clara was in a physical therapy session and that I should wait. I was practically vibrating with anxiety. I didn't snap out of it until I heard her call my name. I looked toward the door and saw Clara walking towards me. She threw her arms around me in a tight hug. I hadn't seen her in 3 years. She had grown into a young woman. Her hug was strong, and it aggravated the bruises from where Khloe had dragged me, making me hiss in pain. Clara immediately let go, her eyes falling on the red marks on my wrist. What is this? Who did this to you? I pulled my sleeve down to cover the marks, my eyes welling up as I looked at my only family. It's nothing. No one hurt me. As long as she was healthy, everything I had gone through was worth it. We hugged for a long time, talking until it grew dark. Clara wasn't fully recovered yet, so she couldn't be discharged. I rented a small apartment near the medical center and brought her meals every day. After a month, Clara was finally discharged, though she still had to come back for weekly checkups. We moved into the apartment together, and for the first time in years, it felt like we were kids again. I was happy. I was content. Meanwhile, back in New York, Khloe was still searching for me. After nearly 2 weeks with no leads, a friend finally asked, "Have you considered he might be out of the country?" Only then did she expand her search internationally. In the midst of her frantic search, the Hayes family, with Dylan in tow, showed up at her office. Khloe leaned back in her chair and regarded them with cold indifference. Mr. Hayes stood before her desk, his face a mask of fury. You locked my son in a wardrobe. He's developed a severe phobia of the dark. You owe us an explanation. Khloe's gaze drifted past the father to Dylan, who was hiding behind him. He flinched under her stare. She let out a humorless laugh. Why don't you ask your son what wonderful things he did to deserve it? He just framed some nobody from the countryside. What's the big deal? Mr. Hayes retorted, his voice dripping with contempt. That Ethan is a worthless peasant. How can you even compare him to my son? Khloe's expression turned to ice. Without another word, she called security and had them unceremoniously thrown out of the building. After that, it became common knowledge in the New York business world that the Vanderbilts and the Hayes were at war. Vanderbilt Industries systematically crushed every deal the Hayes family tried to make. It went on until Mr. Vanderbilt finally told Khloe she was going too far, which prompted her to make a single phone call to Dylan. You and your family need to remember this. If I ever hear you speak another ill word about Ethan, What I do next won't be limited to the boardroom. Dylan stared at his phone after she hung up, his fingernails digging into his palm, his eyes a storm of love and hate. After that, Khloe ceased her attacks on the Hayes family and refocused all her energy on finding me. A few days later, she finally got a hit, Switzerland. She booked the next available flight. On the day Khloe landed in Geneva, I was taking Clara for her checkup. The doctor said her recovery was excellent and that she might not even need another appointment. I was overjoyed, so I decided to take my sister out for a celebratory dinner. During dinner, Clara finally asked the question that had been on her mind. She was worried I had done something terrible to help her. "Ethan, where did you get all this money?" Mr. Vanderbilt had given me a substantial sum when I left, so I wasn't surprised by her question. I felt no shame. I had earned every penny. But that didn't mean I was going to tell her the truth. I got in on a big investment project, paid out well. Maybe it was the connection we'd had since we were kids, but I could tell she knew I was lying. She didn't press the issue. After dinner, we walked back to our apartment, but as we approached the building, I saw someone unexpected standing out front. I stopped dead in my tracks, and Clara, confused, stopped beside me. Following my gaze, she saw a woman with a gaunt, exhausted face standing a short distance away, and Khloe saw her too. The light from the building entrance was bright enough for her to instantly recognize the young woman from the video on my phone. I had told her she was just a college friend I'd lost touch with. It was clear now that was a lie. In a flash, Khloe remembered the notes on my phone. No one would write about a mere friend like that. Jealousy clawed at her throat as she strode toward me. "Who is she?" she demanded. "Is she the reason you lied to me?" I was too stunned to speak. I truly never expected her to find me here. My silence seemed to confirm her fears. A pained expression crossed her face, and she grabbed my wrist. "Ethan, answer me." Seeing this, Clara got angry. She shoved Khloe away from me. "Are you crazy? Let go of him. You're hurting him." Seeing that a fight was about to break out, I sighed and put a hand on my sister's shoulder. "Clara, why don't you head on up?" Clara went upstairs, glancing back over her shoulder repeatedly. Khloe glared at her retreating back. Once she was gone, I finally spoke. "How did you find me?" My question reminded her that I had specifically asked her father not to tell her, and her eyes reddened with anger. "My father didn't tell me, if that's what you're worried about. I found you myself. If he hadn't been so stubborn, I would have found you weeks ago. Did you really not want to see me that badly?" I didn't understand the source of her anger. I just looked at her calmly. "You should know this already. The contract is over. We have nothing to do with each other anymore." Khloe stared at me, her voice a hoarse shout. "I never signed the divorce papers. We are still married." I was surprised for a moment. I hadn't expected that, but it only lasted a second. "It doesn't matter whether you signed it or not." "I did. You shouldn't have come here. It doesn't change anything." Throughout our short exchange, I remained calm, while she was incredibly emotional. She seemed to realize this too, and a fresh wave of pain washed over her face. "You lied to me. You lied to me. You lied to me for 3 years," she whispered, her voice so full of anguish that it took me by surprise. In that moment, I realized that from her perspective, it truly had been a deception. "For deceiving you, I apologize." "I'm sorry." She seemed shocked by my easy apology. She looked up at me, her expression completely broken. "I don't want your apology. I don't want you to be sorry." "Then what do you want?" "I want you to stay with me." She placed her hands on my shoulders, leaning in to look me in the eyes. "I want you to be by my side, just like before. But this time, I promise I won't be so selfish." "Khloe, stop this nonsense. Go home." I brushed her hands off my shoulders and walked into the building without looking back. I didn't take her words seriously. I figured she was just upset about losing a convenient servant. After all, how could a spoiled, cruel heiress possibly develop real feelings for her plaything? As expected, the moment I got upstairs, Clara started questioning me. "Who was that? Why did she say you lied to her?" Clara asked, her brow furrowed with worry. That woman clearly wasn't just anybody, and Clara had no idea what kind of trouble I might have gotten into while she was sick. She was scared I was in danger and wanted to know everything. I knew she was just worried, but I couldn't tell her the truth. I didn't want her to feel any pain on my account. That was the last thing I ever wanted. "She's just someone I know. We had a misunderstanding, and it hasn't been resolved yet." My evasive answer clearly frustrated her. She went to her room without another word. I stared at her closed door and sighed. The next morning, I knocked on her door. "I'm sorry, okay? Come out and have some breakfast." The door opened almost immediately. Clara was pouting. "You worked so hard to get me treatment all those years. I'm just worried about you." Seeing her with the same expression she used to make as a little girl, my heart melted. I know. I promise I'll tell you everything, just not right now, okay? She could never stay mad at me for long. At her next checkup, the doctor recommended she get outside more. So after lunch, I took her to a nearby park. All the while, Khloe was following us from a distance. Seeing me so close with this other woman, her eyes burned with jealousy. She was going mad, but she stayed hidden, not daring to approach. Khloe waited outside my building all day and into the night. She watched as the lights in our apartment came on, casting shadows on the curtains. Suddenly, she saw my taller silhouette lean down toward Clara's shorter one. Our heads came together in a way that, from the outside, looked exactly like a kiss. Rage and jealousy instantly consumed her, and a desperate plan formed in her mind. She left immediately, afraid that if she stayed and saw anything more, she would lose control and drag me out of there right then. In reality, Clara and I were just moving a heavy box. I had no idea what was coming. After that one appearance, I didn't see Khloe again. I assumed she had given up and gone back to New York. 2 days later, I was walking home alone with groceries. As I cut through a narrow alley, someone grabbed me from behind, and everything went black. When I woke up, the first thing I saw was Khloe, sitting in a chair beside the bed. I looked around and saw I was in a private villa. I knew immediately what had happened. But even though I'd been kidnapped, I wasn't scared. Khloe could be cruel, but she wasn't a murderer. Seeing that I was awake, she asked calmly, "Are you thirsty? I can get you some water." She stood up to leave the room. "Don't bother. Just let me go." Her footsteps stopped. She didn't turn around, so I couldn't see her expression. "Let you go? Go where?" "Back to the home you share with her." She spun around, her eyes red with fury, and stalked back towards me. "I will never let you go back to her. Don't even think about it. I am your only wife, and I will never, ever divorce you." She had spent the last 2 days buying this villa and decorating it to look exactly like our house in New York, hoping it would make me feel comfortable, hoping it might make me want to stay. My immediate demand to leave filled her with a pain so sharp it felt like a knife in her heart, and the harsh words tumbled out. For a moment, she thought that even seeing me angry would be better than this indifference. But I wasn't angry. I was just surprised that she had gone to the trouble of kidnapping me simply to stop a divorce and keep me by her side. And so, I became a prisoner in that villa. She didn't lock me in a room. I was free to move about the house, but all the doors and windows were locked. She stayed there with me all day, every day, just watching me. It was just the two of us. She even cooked all the meals herself, which was a shock, as I never knew she could cook at all. I tried to talk about leaving several times, but she would always ignore me and change the subject. On the 5th day, I was so worried about Clara that I finally confronted Khloe directly. "Khloe, I told you, let me go." Knowing she couldn't avoid it any longer, she stopped. She looked at me, her expression stubborn. "I'll let you go, but only if you promise not to divorce me. Otherwise, you're never leaving this house." Though her words were harsh, her face was a mask of misery. I almost smiled. I didn't take her threat seriously. She was acting like a petulant child. She was, after all, 2 years younger than me, only a year older than Clara. When she realized how I saw her, a look of panic crossed her face. Her tough facade crumbled, and her shoulders slumped. She took my hands in hers, her eyes pleading. "Ethan, please don't go. I'll be good to you, I promise. Just stay with me. I can't live without you." Looking at her, so humbled and desperate, I felt a pang of pity. The tormentor had fallen in love with her victim. Was this some kind of cosmic joke? Our contract was supposed to end cleanly, but this thing called love had complicated everything. I tried to pull my hands away, but she held on with surprising strength. My attempt to pull away was answer enough for her, and I saw a flash of sharp pain in her eyes, but she refused to let go. Thinking of her past actions, a desperate hope flickered within her. "Ethan, I'm so sorry. I'm sorry for everything I did to you. I was a monster. It was all my fault." She thought I was refusing to stay because I couldn't forgive her for the past 3 years. She apologized over and over, desperate for my forgiveness. But I had left all those feelings behind the day I walked out of her house. My voice was calm. "I don't blame you. It was a transaction. I got what I wanted, and your family got what they wanted. We're even." Hearing me describe our 3 years together so calmly as a mere transaction, she began to despair. If I had been angry, it would have meant I still felt something for her. But this calm indifference meant she had truly lost everything. "Hate me. Please, just feel something. Give me anything but this indifference. Don't do this to me," she begged, clinging to my hand like a drowning woman. I sighed. When I first signed the contract, I had worried something like this might happen. But after a year with her, and especially after Dylan came back into the picture, I had dismissed the possibility entirely. I never thought it would end up like this. My lips moved, but only 2 words came out. I'm sorry. I knew I didn't have to apologize, but the words came out anyway. This time, I was able to pull my hand free. I turned and walked away. As my hand slipped from her grasp, Khloe stood frozen. She couldn't help but wonder, if she hadn't been so cruel for those 3 years, if she had realized her own feelings sooner, could we have actually fallen in love? Her mind raced with what-ifs, but it was useless. What happened had happened. All she could do now was try to salvage what was left. At dinner that night, I asked her again to let me go. This time, she didn't get emotional. She just calmly ate her food and said, "Leave her, and I'll let you go." She knew it was an unreasonable demand, but she couldn't stand the thought of me living with another woman. Hearing her demand, I paused, and it finally clicked. I realized she had been hostile toward Clara from the very beginning. I hadn't thought anything of it before, but now I understood what she had misunderstood. "I think you've misunderstood something. Clara is my sister." I added for emphasis, my biological sister. Now it was Khloe's turn to be stunned. But instead of embarrassment, a wave of relief washed over her face. Her eyes lit up as she looked at me, her voice earnest. "Ethan, please give me a chance. I'll take good care of you both. I'll treat Clara like she's my own sister." Her words were practically a declaration of love, but I remained unmoved. Those 3 years were a mistake. There's no reason to prolong it. My resolve was firm. "Stop this. Let me go home." This time, she didn't refuse. She knew that keeping me here any longer would only make me resent her more. After dinner, she drove me back to my apartment. As we pulled up, we saw Clara waiting outside. She had clearly been looking for me for days. The moment she saw me get out of Khloe's car, she understood everything. Fury ignited in her eyes. She stormed over, pulled me behind her, and punched Khloe square in the jaw. "You monster! What did you do to my brother?" Khloe staggered back, a burning pain spreading across her cheek. She casually wiped a trickle of blood from her lip, her eyes focused only on me. "Ethan, please think about what I said. I'm not playing games. I'm serious about winning you back." Seeing that Khloe was still talking to me, Clara lunged forward again, but I held her back. "It's okay, Clara. I'm fine." She stopped, but not before shooting Khloe one last venomous glare. Then she pulled me into the building. Once we were inside, Clara spun me around, checking me from head to toe to make sure I was okay. She didn't stop until I finally said, exasperated, "Clara, I'm really okay." As I walked further into the apartment, Clara's voice stopped me. "Ethan, what is really going on between you and that woman?" My back went rigid. Her voice was thick with unshed tears. "I was gone for years, and you never told me how hard things were for you, and I didn't push. But then you just disappeared for days. Do you have any idea how worried I was? I can't be in the dark anymore. Ethan, I'm not a little kid anymore." Her words hit me hard. It was true. I had always treated her like a child I needed to protect, and I had forgotten that she was grown up now. I sighed, led her to the sofa, and told her everything that had happened over the last 3 years, though I glossed over the worst parts of my time with Khloe. By the time I finished, her face was streaked with tears. She had known I'd sacrificed for her, but she never imagined the true cost. Seeing her tears, I stroked her hair just like I did when we were children. "It's okay. It's all over now. All that matters is that you're okay." It was true. It was all in the past. I no longer had to live by Khloe's every command. I was finally free. The next morning, when I opened my door, I knocked something over. It was a large bouquet of flowers with a card. The note was from Khloe. Now I understood what she meant when she said she would seriously pursue me. Just then, a hand reached past me and took the bouquet. "I'll throw this out for you," Clara said. I didn't object, just told her to come right back. Meanwhile, Khloe hadn't left. She was sitting in her car parked down the street. She watched as Clara carried her flowers to the dumpster. She knew Clara wouldn't have done that without my permission. Still, she ground her teeth as she watched. If it wasn't for her, Khloe thought, before stopping herself. If it wasn't for Clara, I never would have entered her life at all. The realization was like a knife to the heart, and she leaned her forehead against the steering wheel. But she wasn't deterred. Every morning, a new bouquet of flowers appeared at my door. She remembered the flowers I had planted in her garden and rotated through each of them, day by day. I noticed this and I was surprised. I had planted at least 5 different kinds of flowers in that garden, and I had always assumed she never even noticed them. But she had not only noticed, she had remembered. Regardless, every bouquet ended up in the trash, courtesy of Clara. She had disliked Khloe on sight, and after learning what she had done to me, she hated her even more. Khloe was persistent in her flower deliveries, and Clara was just as persistent in throwing them away. One night, I was on our small balcony watering some plants when my phone buzzed. It was a message from an unknown number. "Ethan, look up." The simple message made me look up instinctively. The moment I did, a brilliant firework exploded in the sky right above me. The colorful light washed over my face, and people on the street below stopped to watch. My phone buzzed again. "Is it beautiful?" My hand tightened around my phone. It was the most beautiful fireworks display I had ever seen, and the first one that had ever been just for me. But I didn't reply. I stepped back inside, leaving the fireworks to explode over an empty balcony. The fireworks were beautiful, but they couldn't erase the past. I didn't want to be drawn into her complicated world again. All I wanted was a simple, quiet life. For the next few days, the gifts kept coming, but Khloe herself never appeared. One evening, I went for a walk along the shore of Lake Geneva. I had grown up in a small mountain town and had only ever seen large bodies of water on TV. I loved walking along the same path every evening. I knew every twist and turn by heart. But this time, something was different. In the distance, I saw an area decorated with hundreds of flowers, with a single figure standing in the center. It looked like a marriage proposal. As I got closer, I realized the person was Khloe. I stopped, completely stunned. She was holding a bouquet of flowers and walked slowly toward me, her hands trembling slightly. She stopped in front of me and held out the flowers, her eyes full of hope. "Ethan, I really do love you. I'm so sorry for everything I did in the past. I regret it more than anything. Please just give me a chance to make it up to you. I promise I'll treat you right." As she finished speaking, more fireworks exploded over the lake, and a swarm of drones rose into the air, forming words of love against the night sky. It was an incredibly grand romantic gesture. The other people walking along the shore cheered, and we were standing right in the middle of it all. I pulled my gaze away from the drones and looked at the woman in front of me. Into her hopeful silence, I spoke softly. "Khloe, stop. Let's just leave things as they are. I don't need you to make anything up to me." The light in her eyes slowly faded, and the hand holding the flowers dropped to her side. She looked down and gave a bitter laugh. "You can't do this to me, Ethan. You can't. You can't just walk away now that I finally realize I can't live without you." "Khloe, I don't owe you anything," I cut in. "And if you insist on claiming I deceived you, I think your treatment of me over the last 3 years more than makes us even." She stiffened. It was true. I didn't owe her a thing. She knew that, and that was why she was so desperate. But she still couldn't let go. "I'm so sorry, Ethan. I regret everything. Please hit me. I won't even flinch. Do whatever you want, as long as it makes you feel better," she pleaded, grabbing my hand and trying to force me to slap her with it. I yanked my hand back just in time, frowning at her unhinged behavior. "You don't have to do this. You don't owe me anything. We were never from the same world, Khloe. I was just a temporary visitor in yours for business reasons. We both have to go back to our own lives now." "But I don't want to," she cried, looking up at me, her eyes red and filled with a desperate obsession. "I don't want to go back to separate lives. I want a life with you. I'll do anything. I'll fit into your world." Her expression gave me pause. After a moment, I just shook my head. "That's impossible," I said quietly. "I don't want to go back to that life." Just then, I heard someone calling my name in the distance. I turned and saw Clara. From her expression, I could tell she was angry. I started walking toward her, calling back to Khloe over my shoulder, "Go home, and don't look for me again." I walked away without another word and met my sister, who was glaring daggers at Khloe. "Come on, let's go home." Clara didn't make a scene. She just followed me home. I thought I had made myself perfectly clear. And Khloe was a proud person. I didn't think she would come back after a rejection like that. But the very next day, the gifts and flowers started arriving again. When I took Clara for her next checkup, Khloe was waiting downstairs, offering us a ride. Her tone was so cheerful and insistent, it was as if our conversation by the lake had never happened. I refused, of course, and we took a cab. At that appointment, the doctor told us Clara's recovery was complete. She wouldn't need any more checkups. That meant we were finally free to leave Switzerland. That night, I talked to Clara about going home, and she readily agreed. We booked a flight for the next day, not back to New York, but to our small hometown in the mountains. After landing, we took a 2-hour bus ride from the airport. Standing in front of our old family home, I finally felt like I was truly home. The place was run down after being empty for so long, but we put our bags down and immediately started cleaning. Meanwhile, Khloe had no idea we were gone. A work emergency had kept her away for a day. When she returned the next morning to deliver flowers, she saw that the previous day's bouquet was still sitting on the doorstep. Clara always threw them out immediately. Something was wrong. She waited all day, but we never came out. That night, the apartment remained dark. A knot of panic tightened in her stomach. She jumped out of her car, ran up the stairs, and started pounding on the door. No one answered. The neighbor across the hall, disturbed by the noise, opened his door. "What are you doing?" he asked. "The people who live there left with all their luggage yesterday." With that, he slammed his door shut, leaving Khloe standing alone in the empty hallway. The motion sensor light in the hallway timed out, plunging her into darkness. The darkness snapped her out of her stupor, and she fumbled for her phone to call me. It was the first time she had ever called. The call went straight to a message saying the number was no longer in service. I had switched back to my American SIM card, so of course the call wouldn't go through. But Khloe didn't know that. She just thought I had run away from her again. She stood there in the dark, clutching her phone. I had left her, again. The thought repeated over and over in her mind until she felt like her heart would burst. After what felt like an eternity, she finally called her assistant. "Find Ethan Miller for me, now." Hearing the dead, flat tone in her voice, her assistant didn't dare ask any questions. 2 days later, her assistant found me. When Khloe saw the address, a small town in upstate New York, she breathed a sigh of relief. It was my hometown. I wasn't running from her. I had just gone home. She booked the next flight without a second's hesitation. The exhaustion of the long journey vanished the moment she saw me, sitting in a chair in my front yard, enjoying the sun. I was shocked to see her. I never thought she would follow me all the way out here. Khloe, however, was overcome with emotion. She rushed over and threw her arms around me. "Ethan, I finally found you. Please don't ever just disappear like that again. I can't take it." I tried to pull away, but she only held on tighter. It wasn't until I said, in a voice of ice, "Let go of me," that she finally, reluctantly, released me. "What are you doing here?" My cold, distant tone finally seemed to quell her excitement. "I told you I would become a part of your world. I meant it." The stubborn look in her eyes made my head ache. Before I could respond, Clara came out of the house. "You again," she snapped, stepping between us. "How did you find us here? What do you want?" She glared at Khloe, her expression fierce. Khloe didn't argue. She just gave me one last, long look before turning and walking away. Clara watched her until she was out of sight before turning back to me. "Did she do anything to you? That woman is insane. I can't believe she followed us all the way out here." I patted her arm reassuringly and shook my head, my gaze fixed on the empty road beyond our gate. Even though she had left without an argument, I had a feeling she wasn't gone for good. And I was right. Khloe hadn't left. She had never intended to leave. She knew that the chasm between us was more than just unrequited love. It was 3 years of pain she had inflicted. She was prepared to endure any hardship, any amount of my coldness, to win me back. She drove her car to the edge of town, where I wouldn't see it, and waited until dark before walking back to my house. Clara and I were eating dinner in the yard when she returned. Clara immediately jumped to her feet. "What are you doing back here?" I gently pulled her back down into her seat, but she continued to watch Khloe with a wary expression. Khloe paid her no mind, her eyes only on me. "It's late, and there are no more buses out of town tonight. I don't have anywhere to stay. Could I possibly stay here?" I looked at the darkening sky. It was true. The last bus had already left, and our town didn't have a hotel. After a moment's thought, I agreed. A look of joy flashed across her face, but it faded when I added, "You can stay for one night, but you have to leave in the morning." I waited for her to agree before letting her in. She had no choice but to promise, though I knew she was just trying to get her foot in the door. Clara showed her to the guest room, giving her a final warning before she left. "You'd better not try anything, or you'll have to answer to me." Khloe completely ignored her. The next morning, I got up and went to the kitchen, only to find Khloe already there, cooking. She glanced over her shoulder at me. "Breakfast is almost ready. Ethan, can you go wake Clara up?" I was so taken aback by her casual, domestic tone that I just stood there. I turned and saw Clara standing in the doorway, looking just as confused as I felt. Just then, Khloe brought the food to the table. "Come on, you two. It's my first time making this, so you'll have to tell me if it's any good." Clara and I sat there in a daze, eating the food she had made, both of us wondering if she had been replaced by an imposter. Clara might not have understood the full extent of it, but I did. The Khloe I knew only knew how to give orders. She had never cared for anyone in her life, and now here she was acting like this was the most natural thing in the world. After we finished eating, before I could remind her of her promise to leave, she cleared the table and started washing the dishes. When she came out of the kitchen, I was about to speak, but she just glanced at me before heading out to the garden where Clara was working. "Let me help you with that." I had no choice but to keep quiet. Out in the garden, Clara seemed to be in a silent competition with Khloe, each trying to work harder than the other. Thanks to their rivalry, the planting was finished in no time. With no more chores to be done, I finally walked up to Khloe. "You can. I'll go get some water," she interrupted, grabbing a bucket and heading for the well before I could finish. And so it went until it was dark again. I couldn't bring myself to kick her out so late, so Khloe stayed another night. This went on for 3 days. When I went to the general store in town, the owner said to me, "Ethan, that girlfriend of yours is a real keeper. Pretty as a picture and a hard worker too." I didn't want to explain, so I just gave an awkward laugh. When I got home, I saw Khloe working in the field out front. Seeing the once pampered heiress tilling the soil left a bitter taste in my mouth. This wasn't who she was supposed to be. I knew why she was doing it. I had tried to talk to her about leaving countless times, but she always found a way to evade the subject. That evening, I insisted on cooking dinner myself. I decided this would be the last meal. This couldn't be dragged out any longer. But things rarely go according to plan. In the middle of dinner, Clara suddenly said she was having trouble breathing, and then she passed out. My mind went blank. I just held her, frozen. It was Khloe who reacted first. She had me help get Clara onto her back, and she carried her all the way to her car at the edge of town, then drove us to the nearest hospital. I was a nervous wreck the entire drive. Khloe drove with one hand and held mine with the other, trying to calm me down. When we got to the hospital, she handled everything, running around to get doctors and fill out paperwork. Even after I had calmed down, she insisted I just sit and rest. In the end, the doctor determined it was just overexertion. Nothing serious. Only then did I finally relax. And then, I was flooded with regret. I had been so careless, letting my sister, who was still recovering, work so hard. Once Clara was settled in her room, I tucked her in and stepped outside, closing the door behind me. I looked at Khloe. "Thank you. If it weren't for you, I don't know how we would have gotten here." I chose to ignore the fact that she had a car the whole time she was imposing on us. She looked at me, her eyes full of a deep, sincere emotion. "Ethan, I told you I would take care of you, and that includes your sister." I looked down. I was grateful for her help, truly, but that gratitude made it even more important to be clear, to not give her false hope. I looked back at her, my voice firm. "I really am grateful for your help today, but I don't need you to take care of me. I need you to understand that." She froze, silent for a long moment. Just as I was about to say something else, she looked away and forced a smile. "I'll go check on Clara. Maybe she's waking up." She was smiling, but I could hear the unshed tears in her voice. Before I could answer, she slipped into Clara's room. It was her way of escaping. She had realized that I wouldn't push the subject when Clara was around. She knew it wasn't a solution, but she was so terrified of me leaving for good that she clung to any extension of this false peace between us. Clara woke up the next morning. The moment I saw her eyes open, tears of relief streamed down my face. "Don't cry," she said, trying to comfort me. "I'm fine, see?" After the doctor confirmed she was fine, we all got in Khloe's car to go home. As we walked into the yard, Clara fell into step beside Khloe. "Thanks," she said quietly, before hurrying to my side. Khloe froze for a second, watching us walk ahead. The sight filled her with a strange mix of comfort and sharp, clear pain. She knew this domestic scene was a fantasy. I had never accepted her. This was all just a product of her own stubborn refusal to leave. That night, as I was getting ready for bed, Clara knocked on my door. She came in and sat across from me, and after a long silence, she finally asked, "How do you really feel about Khloe?" I paused, surprised by the question. After a moment, I decided to be honest. We're from two different worlds, and those 3 years, they were more than enough trouble for one lifetime. I don't care about who was right or wrong anymore. I just want to go back to my own life, without any more drama. I reached out and ruffled her hair, just like when we were kids. "I'm just tired, Clara. I just want to rest. But you, if there's anywhere you want to go, anything you want to do, you should do it. I'll always support you." I didn't want her to feel tied down because of me. She understood what I was saying and nodded. As she left my room, she wiped a tear from her eye and went straight to Khloe's room. She had asked me that question to find out how I truly felt. Now she had her answer. Clara called Khloe outside. Not wanting to disturb me, they walked to a small hill behind the house. There were no lights, but the moon was bright enough to see by. They sat in silence for a long time before Clara finally spoke. "You should go home. Stop harassing my brother." Khloe's expression faltered. After a moment, she asked in a hoarse voice, "Is that what Ethan wants?" She already knew the answer as she asked. Clara may have disliked her, but she would never speak for me. Clara didn't answer. She just looked up at the moon and asked a different question. "My brother lived with you for 3 years. Did you treat him well?" The question hit Khloe like a physical blow, lodging in her heart. Those 3 years were a constant source of agonizing regret, a memory that felt like a knife twisting in her gut. Clara found her answer in the silence. She gave a bitter laugh. He told me about the contract. But when I asked him what those 3 years were like, he barely said anything. I didn't push him. But you, she said, jumping to her feet, her voice rising to a shout. You're the one who caused all his pain. How dare you show your face here? Khloe covered her face with her hands, her voice choked with anguish. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry for what I did to him. I know I was horrible, but I really do love him. I want to make it up to him. I would die for him if he'd let me. Tears welled in Clara's eyes as she looked down at the other woman's pathetic display. She sneered. My brother doesn't need anything from you. Do you know what he told me today? He said he's tired. Chloe's shoulders went rigid. Clara continued, her voice cold. He said he's tired and just wants to rest. So please just leave. Your being here is only making him more tired. With that, Clara turned and walked back to the house. Khloe sat there motionless, my words echoing in her head. I'm tired. She had prepared for my hatred, but she had never considered that her very presence could be a burden to me. She was trapped. She sat on that hill all night. Only when the first light of dawn appeared did she move her numb legs and start walking back to the house. She cooked breakfast. When Clara came out and saw her, she frowned, thinking her words had been for nothing. Then Khloe spoke, her voice hoarse. Ethan's birthday is soon. I'll leave after I celebrate it with him. In the end, she had compromised. She couldn't bear to leave me, but she couldn't bear to hurt me either. This was her penance. I knew nothing of their conversation. I only noticed that Khloe had started staring at me with a strange expression, quickly smiling and looking away whenever I caught her. She grew quieter, no longer rushing to do chores, but simply staying near me in silence. The day of my birthday arrived, though I didn't even realize it myself. I had lost track of such things over the years. When I came back from a trip into town and saw the house decorated, I assumed it must be for Clara. Seeing my confusion, Chloe's eyes reddened, and her heart ached. It was only when she approached me with a birthday cake that I finally understood. Happy birthday, Ethan. This is the first birthday I've ever celebrated for you, and the last. She choked on the last word, pausing before she continued. I was a terrible wife to you. I wronged you in so many ways. Please, just let me give you this one birthday. I frowned. We were never. I know, she cut in, her voice almost a plea. I know. You don't have to remind me. I said no more. She put down the cake and opened a small jewelry box. Inside were 2 rings, a matching set. She gave a small, sad laugh. I designed these myself. I had hoped that one day, you would put this one on my finger. They were just finished yesterday, just in time. I knew you wouldn't agree, but I still had this foolish hope that maybe, if you saw them, you might change your mind. But it seems I was wrong. I listened in silence, not moving a muscle. She looked up at me. Ethan, could you, just for a moment, put it on? I just want to see what it looks like, just for a second. Please. Seeing her so humbled and pleading, my resolve wavered for just a moment, and I agreed. She didn't look surprised, just a little desperate as she slid the ring onto my finger. She knew this was the last kindness I would ever show her. The sight of the ring on my hand seemed to break her. She clutched my hand and begged, Ethan, please don't leave me. Please. I really can't live without you. I felt her tears fall on my hand. My expression remained neutral as I spoke softly. Khloe, no one is indispensable. You were fine before I came into your life. This idea that you can't live without me is just something you've told yourself. It's not real. It's time for you to grow up and go back to your own world. This is where it ends for us. Khloe buried her face in my hand and said nothing for a long time, her shoulders shaking with silent sobs. A part of her wanted to keep fighting, to stay by my side whether I wanted her there or not. But Clara's words kept echoing in her mind. She could love me, she could pursue me, but she couldn't be the cause of my exhaustion. At the last second, her reason won out. With a trembling hand, she slowly, carefully, removed the ring from my finger. Okay, Ethan, I'll listen to you. She had arrived quietly, and she left the same way. Khloe left that night, afraid that if she saw me in the morning, she wouldn't have the strength to go. When she got back to New York, she fell gravely ill, slipping into a coma. Mr. and Mrs. Vanderbilt rushed to her side. The doctors couldn't find any physical reason for her condition. They concluded it was psychosomatic, brought on by an immense emotional burden. She wasn't unconscious for long, waking up after 5 days. When she did, she just stared blankly at the ceiling. She didn't respond, no matter how her mother called her name. Just as Mrs. Vanderbilt was about to frantically call for a doctor, Khloe finally spoke, her voice completely devoid of life. It was because, during her coma, she'd had a beautiful dream. She dreamed that we had fallen in love normally, that she had come with me to my family home, and that we were living there happily. The dream continued until I suddenly said, "I'm tired." At that moment, the dream shattered, and she woke up. In that moment, she truly wished she could have stayed in that dream forever, never waking up. But fate, it seemed, was intent on punishing her and had forced her back to reality. Khloe was kept in the hospital for another day for observation before being discharged. She didn't call her parents to pick her up. She took a cab by herself. Meanwhile, Dylan Hayes had heard she was being discharged and was waiting in his car across the street. After she had locked him in that wardrobe, he had developed severe claustrophobia. To make matters worse, after his father's failed attempt to get justice, the Hayes family had been ruined, and Dylan became a laughingstock in their social circle. He was ostracized, constantly ridiculed for being brought down by a nobody from the countryside. For the past month, he had hidden away at home, consumed by hatred and fear of ridicule. When he heard a few days ago that Khloe had returned, he saw his chance for revenge. If it weren't for her, he would still be the respected Dylan Hayes, heir to a fortune, not the social pariah he had become. He hated her with every fiber of his being. So when he saw her emerge from the hospital and get into a taxi, he floored the accelerator and rammed his car directly into it. The collision was violent and instantaneous. Being so close to the hospital, help arrived within minutes. Khloe was lucky to survive, but the crash had permanently damaged her right leg. She would never walk on it again. Khloe had no choice but to accept her new reality. In a way, she was almost relieved. If she could still walk, she couldn't trust herself not to run back to me in a moment of weakness. This injury removed the temptation. She spent another 2 months in the hospital recovering. Her mother told her that Dylan Hayes had been sentenced to prison for attempted murder. Khloe didn't care what happened to him. She returned to the house we had once shared. She had the housekeeper buy seeds for all the flowers I had planted, and then, from her wheelchair, she planted them herself. She was trying to turn back time, to make the garden look just as it had before I left. As for the 2 rings she had designed, she wore her own on her finger. Mine she wore on a chain around her neck, and whenever the pain and regret became too much to bear, she would press the ring that hung over her heart to her lips, as if she were kissing me.